Hello and welcome to The Hub, powered by Manpower of Richmond. I am your host, Michael Allen, and here on The Hub, we interview local business leaders, community partners, and various special guests. And our mission is to share unique and untold stories of companies, organizations, and people who are making a difference in our community. Manpower of Richmond, the sponsor of The Hub, is a national staffing brand. Yet we're a locally owned franchise, and we are familiar with the challenges businesses face. It is tough recruiting and retaining talent, and we are here to help manage your hiring and training and provide some ongoing support. So today's guest here at the Hub is Kyle Ingram. He's the Executive Director of the Circle U Help Center located at 19 North 13th Street. Given the time of the year, we really wanted to try to talk to a local not-for-profit that's really designed to help meet some of the basic needs of people in our community. And Circle U has been serving the local community since 1979, and presently they serve over 1,600 hot meals monthly, and this includes about 80 meals that are delivered each Saturday to shut-ins around our community. And they currently serve breakfast and lunch on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Saturdays. And their food pantry operates on the third Saturday of each month. So, Kyle Ingram, welcome to the Hub.
Mr. Allen, great to be here.
Hey,
sir.
So happy to have you here, get to talk to you. Full disclosure, Kyle is a good friend of mine. And despite that, wanted to have him here today. Yeah. Had a lot of good times with Kyle, and just excited about having him here to talk about Circle U. We're definitely here to talk about Circle U, Kyle, but however, I do want to spend a little bit of time talking to you personally about just, you being from Richmond and where you spent most of your life in our community. And I just believe that, hearing your personal story would be really interesting to our followers. So I guess that being said, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, being from Richmond and ongoing.
Grew up, obviously, here. My father, mother, I think we moved in here in 1961. Mm-hmm. Father started his high school teaching career at Medora High School, which is down around Seymour. Okay. And his high school basketball coach, Mr. John Baston, took the position as head basketball coach at Richmond and asked Dad as a former player, mm-hmm. if he would like to join him as his assistant here at Richmond. And that's kind of how we came about being here, and attended Joseph Moore Elementary, Dennis Middle School, Richmond High School, graduated in 1977, mm-hmm. and moved back here in 1987. After attending college at the University of Southern Mississippi. And first job out of college was with local company Belden Wire and Cable. Then I fell in love with my wife, who is now a physician at Reed Hospital. She's vascular interventional radiologist, Dr. Beth Ingram. Mm-hmm. And she's from Connorsville, and we've been home here since 1987.
One question when I met with you before, which, even knowing you the years that I have, I didn't really know this story, but tell us a little bit about going to Southern Mississippi, right? I mean, because it was kind of I felt that was kind of interesting how you ended up there and the people that were there.
It was like old home week. There were 5 or 6 guys from Richmond who were at the university: Frank Maurer, David Coleman, Chris Boley, his brother Greg Boley, Frank Maurer, Jack Warfield, and they were all down there to play golf and obviously attend school and for different academic reasons. And I was looking for a place, obviously, to go. And I was going to go to Hanover College from the time that I was probably 8 years of age, and attended their first basketball camp down there with Coach John Collier. And just happened to be talking with the Boleys about making a visit. Went down there and really fell in love with the University of Southern Mississippi. And that's where I decided to go. Kind of shocked parents and those who knew me real well, but that's where I ended up.
I'm sure your parents were supportive once you got going down there.
And once they recovered from the shock of we're going where, yeah, they fell in love with it too. It's very good to me. Several just wonderful people down there. Had an opportunity to play basketball for a fine man by the name of Coach M.K. Turk. And the folks and my academic advisor, just great people, kind of kept me in line. And I got out of there with a degree in marketing and came home, and next thing I know, I'm working for Belden.
Right. So, but the career that I'm aware of you spending a lot of your time is doing officiating, and you were a Division I college basketball.
Yes, sir.
Official. Mm-hmm. Is it official or referee? What's the proper word?
There's a lot of words that go with it.
Not the ones that the crowds yell at you, but the more the vocational term.
It's either or, official or referee. Spent 28 years with that.
Yeah.
And I would do it all over again. Had a great career. My dad was obviously very successful at it here in the state of Indiana, and he was kind of the one who I would, idolized, growing up. Always wanted to be like my father. And, he just was extremely successful with not only the officiating part of it, but obviously his ability to educate young people. And, I started going with Dad when I was about 6 years of age, and traveling all over the state of Indiana. And it was kind of that once I left school and still wanted to be part of something, the basketball officiating kind of fell into that category. And 3 years ago, we called it quits.
The different conferences that you worked in, and there's probably some well-known coaches that you came across.
Sure.
At different schools, and when you're watching games on television, or maybe you're attending, it seems like the coaches, they're really giving you guys a hard time. But a lot of times they're griping about calls or whatever. But I would suspect when you're not seeing all that, some of those, did you build relationships with these guys, or did they get to know you at all? Or like, hey, hey Kyle, how's it going? Or was it more adversarial type of?
No, I don't think it's ever adversarial. There might be a short period of time, 3 seconds or whatever, where they're going to voice their opinion or dissatisfaction with any one particular thing that might be going on. Mm-hmm. And, as far as socializing and that type of thing afterwards, prior to, that's not anything that we really do or did. Uh-huh. And it's a give and take type thing, because we as officials, we don't get it all right. We're not perfect. We're going to miss a few. Mm-hmm. Hopefully not more than a few, because you are observed every game. Checks and balances, good calls, bad calls, calls that should have been made that weren't, that type of thing.
Right.
But at the end of the day, the coaches at that particular level, they're going to say what they got to say, and then they go back to coaching.
Yeah, they got to concentrate on the game at hand and their players and what's going on. So,
exactly.
Yeah. Well, I just think that's interesting that, that just all the kinds of personalities that you would have got to meet over, that long of a career, is probably kind of a neat thing that you got to experience.
It was a 28 years of just a lot of fun. And I don't miss the travel. People ask, what is it that you miss the most about it? And it's the interaction with the guys, the ones that you work with day in, day out. But the travel with the airports, the rental cars, the hotels, the missed flights, catching a new connection. After a while, I don't miss that one bit.
Yeah, yeah. So, well, congratulations on such an awesome career doing that. And so, I want to go back to something that we ask everyone that's on the hub is because of our association, in my association with Manpower, what was your first job that you ever did that you can remember? Like you would have got a paycheck or someone paid you to do?
It was your father,
okay,
through Manpower, that had a opportunity to work at Phillips Recording out on
Rich Road.
Rich Road.
Okay.
Somewhere between my high school senior year and my freshman year of college. And I believe, if I'm correct, your father was a student manager for my dad and Mr. Baston with the basketball program.
Oh, that would surprise. Yeah.
And when the opportunity came to look for work, Dad said, go down and see Mr. Allen, and your father hooked me up, and that was my first real paycheck, my first real job.
And it's so funny that you tell that story about having that job, because I never knew that. And all the times that you knew I worked at Manpower and everything, that it just never came up that, hey, I worked there at one time,
Yep.
So at that time, they were probably making records, not even, or was it cassettes or 8-tracks yet?
No, it was albums.
Yeah. Isn't it funny how,
Times have changed.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
quite a bit. Later that facility, I think, transitioned even into making compact disc, and now that's even gone, So that's pretty amazing. Do you remember what you got made an hour back then?
Whatever it was, I was overpaid, I'm sure.
I'm sure it probably wasn't more than $2 or $3. I don't know, but that's really cool. So as far as Circle U, can you go into a little bit about the history of the organization, kind of how it got started, and because it's been around since '79, I believe I got that part right. And so just tell me about Circle U. And
when a lady who lived in the home there one day walked out her front door and was, I don't know if she was breaking up leaves or something in her front yard, and there was 2 or 3 folks that came by on the sidewalk there, and they looked a little bit despondent, and she asked if, she could do anything to help them out. And, they said, well, we're hungry. So she offered them to come inside and gave them a bowl of soup and a sandwich or something like that. And I think at that point in time, something went off, a light bulb went off. And in essence, that's pretty much how Circle U got started, was the lady who first lived in that house offered somebody who was a little bit down on their luck an opportunity to grab a meal, and here we are today.
Yeah, and that kind of became, I suspect, a kind of a personal ministry of hers that just continued to grow, and it's in the same location as where she lived, right?
It's in the same location. Obviously, there's been some additions to the building that we today couldn't do without in terms of the numbers that we serve,
right?
And but it was her vision that, started this thing called Circle U Help Center.
Right. I like to go, and we had met a few days ago, and just because I wanted to know a little bit more about the facility and everything, because I hadn't really, I'd been in one part of it, but you've had the addition of the warehouse, and I didn't really haven't seen how all the operation works until you took me through it. The warehouse is how many square feet is that? It's like
7,200 square feet.
Okay. And so there was nothing that didn't replace a warehouse. That just was additional space.
Correct. There were 2 properties that were where that warehouse currently sits. Homes that needed to be torn down, and we went through, I guess, the city and the proper procedures, cut through the red tape to purchase those 2 lots for us then to expand like we have with the warehouse. And it's been a huge benefit to us because we can, store a lot of our items that are there. And then we may get into this later, but during the height of the pandemic, we were getting about 27,000 pounds of food, per month. And that was prior to the warehouse. And so we were having things still in the lunchroom area. We had an upstairs 3 floors in that house that we were taking food upstairs and bringing it back downstairs as needed. We had a place out on the east side of town. Cronin Toyota had a huge warehouse in back that was basically empty, that we ultimately moved all of our things out there and ran our food pantries basically preparing for our food pantries out there with all the boxes and things that we were doing, and then would bring them back into Circle U. And with the addition of the facility now, we're able to do all of that in-house.
Just keep it all in one location. Mm-hmm. You've got the original home. You've got, I guess, the original extension, which is really kind of where your kitchen and where people come for their meals.
Correct.
And then that kind of tunnels over to where the main warehouse is now, where you have freezers there and you have your inventory there. And then I guess we can talk about this part of it now. So you on one Saturday every month you do like a food pickup.
Correct.
And it's kind of neat how you set up that warehouse. You have a door on each end of it, and so people. What time do you start serving or distributing the food on?
Our pantry runs from 2 to about 3:30, depending upon when we run out of boxes.
Okay.
And that's the third Saturday of each month.
So people, they come anticipating to go through the line, and they actually pull their cars in.
Yep.
And then pop the trunks, and volunteers put the food in, and how do you track? I mean, who's coming or going? I'm sure that just out of people's privacy, you don't really collect a lot of personal information. But I mean, how does that work as they're coming through the line?
All we ask for is a name, an address, number of folks in your household. I mean, if there's, you may be picking up for a friend, mm-hmm. and we usually like to have that individual. Maybe they can't drive or they don't have transportation.
Okay.
With that particular person to clarify there are two different households. But if, my thoughts are, and the board and the folks that are closely affiliated with Circle U, our thoughts are that if you're hungry and you have a need for food, we're not going to ask questions. We're just going to get you your name, get your address, and get you what you need to get by for the next 3 weeks.
Right. So people drive there, but they also they arrive on foot and pick it up and carry it back wherever they're going.
Yeah, because a lot of the folks there around North 13th, 14th, 12th Street, the weather here lately has been excellent. They walk there and they take their box and go home.
Do you find that most of your clients at Circle U are really kind of just from the neighborhood, or does it expand out greater than that? Or do you even know?
Well, no, I would say that 80% of who we serve on our pantry days are from probably a 6-block area. Mm-hmm. Closer to 95% of who we serve during our meal services, Mondays, Tuesdays, and Saturdays, are from right within that area, 2 or 3 blocks. You'd have to take a look at the addresses that we get from those that drive in for the food pantry. Mm-hmm. But primarily, I would probably play a 6 to 8 block area that the majority of our clients come from.
Actually, I'm pretty familiar with that neighborhood mm-hmm. because I literally grew up only 9 blocks from where your center is, where Circle U is, mm-hmm. On North 22nd Street. And also, during high school, I worked on a church bus route that picked up kids and took them to church on Sunday. And so all those homes in that area were the families that we took their kids to church. Sometimes adults would, but it was mainly just little kids were going to Sunday school and church. And so that neighborhood is, for whatever reason, has really been kind of a needy area for a long time.
Yes, the North End.
Yeah, it really has. And I don't know what that speaks of our community, but it's just been that way. And it's really great that Circle U has been there as a help to all those families in that area. And
they truly appreciate to have an opportunity or a place with which they can go to help offset some of it's particularly here of late, with the prices of groceries and, the paycheck only goes so far. And it's not like the majority of our people aren't trying to find employment or aren't employed. It's just, they may have, a household of four and they're working for $14-15 an hour. And, you're trying to pay for your car payment. You're trying to pay your utility bills. You try to pay your phone bills. At the end of the month, it's like, well, you've only got X number of dollars left. And to have a resource like Circle U for them to come to when those times are, and they're in need, it's fulfilling from our end.
You do your weekly service, you do the monthly, but Thanksgiving is kind of a big day for Circle U, or at least the biggest holiday where your services are most put to work.
Correct.
Yeah. How is that different, or what does that look like?
Well, what's different is that through volunteers who come into our facility and help pack a box of yams, green beans. In this case, it was ham steaks, pumpkin pie, roll and butter. We have the clamshells, and we probably had close to 60 volunteers come in this year, along with folks who drive, and we delivered over, I think it was approximately 842 meals on Thanksgiving Day that normally we don't deliver because we just don't have the resources.
Right.
But on this particular day, Thanksgiving Day, and it's been something that's been going on for quite some time, folks in this city from around the area, they show up Thanksgiving morning right around 8 o'clock, and next thing you know, at 9:15, we're out the doors, and by noon, everybody has a Thanksgiving meal. And it's a huge undertaking. But the organization of it, and again, it was all put in place long before I got there. It's just an amazing thing to see.
Right. I mean, I think probably it's a kind of an annual kind of service tradition for a lot of people and a lot of families, that this is something that they decide that they're going to do every year.
From the standpoint of the volunteers?
Yeah, the volunteers.
Oh, yes. Yep.
Yeah. You probably, how many years have you been the director?
This is my third year.
So you've probably, just in 3 years, you've probably seen a lot of the same people coming.
And they respond with emails leading up to, hey, we're still planning on volunteering. We're still going to be doing the Thanksgiving meals. What do you need me to do? What can we do to help? And you don't ever want to turn volunteers away, obviously.
Right.
And so the fact that they're willing to get there. We had volunteers this year that came and helped organize our shelves, our pantry shelves, until it was time to either take meals to deliver or begin, the rotation of putting the clamshells and the meals together, just because they wanted to be there.
So we talked about your previous career. How did it come about that you decided that you were going to get involved in Circle U and become executive director? I mean,
I had been on the board probably for 7, maybe 8 years.
Okay.
Prior to my taking the position as executive director. The previous executive director took another position, and I was on the board. I had just really retired, if I can use that word, from, officiating basketball. And I just knew that I had to be doing something. I mean, you can only play golf in Indiana so many days out of the year, right?
Right.
So
unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately. And so I approached the board, or made it known that if they were comfortable with hiring me or putting me in that position, that I would, I'd relish the opportunity, would love to have the opportunity to do it. And they voted yay, and so here we are.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think it's great that you're doing that. Back to the mission and what you do. How is Circle U funded? How do you get the money to do the things that you've got to do?
A lot of it, the majority of it, in terms of paying for the lights, the phones, some of the food, through private donations.
Okay.
We do a lot of fundraising. We have this, there's a program through the state of Indiana called the Neighborhood Assistance Program. And we had this year roughly $11,250 of state tax credits that we could sell. But for those folks and for us to get the full $11,250, then we had to sell $22,500 worth of donations. For the last 5, 6, 7 years, by the December 31st, we have sold 100% of those state tax credits. So that's part of a funding that we get. The others come from corporate folks here in town, private citizens. And we just started a fundraiser here, first part of the month. We have a private donor who has pledged $25,000, dollar for dollar, up through the end of January, up to and including $25,000 for each dollar we can raise. So if we can raise $15,000, this individual said he'll donate $15,000.
But you're hoping to get the whole 25,000.
Hoping to get the 25,000.
Well, how does that look? Does it look like
just this past week, in fact, I just made a deposit today, and we're right around $4,800, and the checks really just went out right after Thanksgiving.
Okay.
So we're already starting to see folks, respond.
So those following this podcast, they still have a chance to help make up that 20,000 that you can still match.
Absolutely, and they can send their donation to Post Office Box 491 here in Richmond, 47375. And, as a 501c3, all those donations are, tax deductible. And as, we're a nonprofit. So I say it all the time, Mike, what we do at Circle U, we're not the only food pantry in town. There are several others. But we're not really in competition with any of them. We can't do what we do without the support of the folks here in Wayne County. And this city is a very, very, this county, this area is a very, very giving place. And shout out to them, because folks like us and others can't do what we do.
Right. It does amaze me how many not-for-profits exist within our county, within Richmond, and the money that they need to receive to operate what they do. And there's a lot. We have a lot, and there's a lot that's done. And for a community that isn't necessarily seeing a lot of growth, but they are great givers and compassionate people, and so you speak well of them, and it speaks well of our community.
We have a collaboration with communities and schools, and there are 22 schools in Wayne County. And of those 22 schools, there's roughly, I'd say 9,000 students, maybe a little bit more.
Okay.
And there's a statistic out, according to Feeding America, that just in this area of Wayne County, roughly 20% of those students, of that 9,000, are food insecure. Food insecure, for those who may not understand what that term or phrase means, is that, as an example, you, Mike, may go home today after school, and you may not eat until you come back to school on Monday morning. So part of our collaboration with communities and schools is to seek funding through grants that we at Circle U and communities and schools, with a collaborative effort, can seek funding to purchase healthy, nutritious snacks for those students who've been identified by the 22 site coordinators as being food insecure or needy, or in that case, some young person comes to school Monday and they're just hungry.
Right.
Give them a little snack to get them through until lunchtime.
Because I'm a community and schools mentor, and I had no idea that you had a partnership with them, and there's food there that I see. Yep. And that's coming from your partnership.
The snacks would be, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Who are some of your other partners in the community?
We do a lot with the Boys and Girls Club, but they in and of themselves are wonderful people. I mean, what they do for the youth of this community is really unmatched. We get along and do some things with the veterans, VFW Post 1108, and the fourth Tuesday of each month, we have a food pantry specifically for the veterans. And the difference being there is that they run it. We will supply some of the dry goods, and they in turn will finance us to pick up frozen meat items. But they ask for, and rightfully so, an ID. And I don't know, probably anywhere from 90, 95 to 100, 110 boxes each month that through the VFW, we will help support that cause.
But that's not done out of your location, or is it?
No, it's not. It's at off the VA clinic there off of North J.
Okay.
Behind the VA clinic. Right.
But that's another partnership that you have. So what are some of, we've talked about how generous the community is, but I don't want to make too many assumptions, but I would assume that one of your potential struggles or opportunities is financing, getting enough money to do the operation.
Correct.
So that's one of it. Is there anything else that presents kind of a challenge to the organization right now that would be good for people to know about?
You hit on it. Our biggest issue is, and we understand that we can't be everything to everyone.
Sure.
Finances, monetary donations, things that we can do on our own to go out and purchase necessary food items to offset. I think I mentioned earlier that during the height of the pandemic, we were getting 27,000 pounds of food a month. Just this past month, we got a little over 2,000. Well, that's over a 90% drop. And the pandemic itself was a pandemic, obviously, but food insecurity in and of itself is a pandemic. And that issue here, as amongst other places, throughout the country, is growing. Mm-hmm. So you get a 90% drop in what you were being given through Gleaner's Food Bank, and then an increase of roughly 20% or more in what you're having to serve. We got to figure out a way to make up that shortage. And like I've said, if you've seen the prices in the grocery store, it's almost impossible. We got a great donation from Dot Foods here not too long ago, roughly $5,000, where we were able to fill out a list of things that we would want to help through our food distribution. If it weren't for something like that as a community partner from them, we'd have to put $60,000 in our budget just to feed about 100 people, because that's about what $5,000 goes. That's about how far it goes.
And you don't really have a lot of employees. I mean, it's just volunteers and then the resources that you need to gain to feed people.
Correct.
Right?
There's 3 employees.
Yeah.
Other than myself. I've got this title of executive director, but there are 6 women who have been there almost from day one, who have over 120 years of volunteer experience. So I just do what they tell me.
Yeah, I'm sure it's wise on your part.
Don't say that too loud.
So currently in the future, I mean, facility-wise, do you think you're in pretty good shape right now? I mean, the way you have it, what are some of the needs moving forward there, you think?
We are in probably as good a shape as we could possibly be in, all things considered, with the addition of the warehouse. Mm-hmm. As far as, needs and wants and those type things, again, it just boils down to the more we can get in terms of food products, dry goods in particular, that we can hand out, the better. We've had schools that, have done food drives. We've had local businesses that do food drives. And like you said in your introduction and introductory remarks, this is a time of year where a lot of that gets done. And we're just blessed to have, that kind of support, because every little bit helps. I mean, you see on Fox 59 News all the time about the food banks, Gleaners and Midwest Food, and that $5 will feed a family of 4 for 2 weeks or whatever the case may be. Well, a lot of what they do at Gleaners in Midwest, that's who supplies or helps supply us with the products that we need. Gleaners is once a month drop, and what they do is a food bank service, I think it's 20, 22, 23 counties throughout the state of Indiana. And people will say, well, how come the shortage, from the pandemic? Well, during the pandemic, the federal government was pushing things out to help with the issue of hunger and food and the pandemic itself. Well, as the country got a hold of the pandemic, well, then the federal government kind of pulled back on what they were forcing out. So the gleaners they get 1,000 pounds, and they've got 22 counties. There's only so much that they can distribute equally to the food pantries throughout the state.
So financial contributions are great because that allows you to use those funds to get exactly what you need. Mm-hmm. Definitely, if people have time, they want to serve, they contact Circle U. You'll do everything you can to kind of plug them in where they can help the organization. Mm-hmm. And then it comes to food donations. And although I'm sure you appreciate any kind of donation that is made, there's probably some donations that are better to receive than others. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a part of a food rescue program here locally with Reed Hospital, Kroger, Walmart, Needlers, Starbucks. Those places, particularly Reed, will take food that they serve through the week for their patients, and then what they have left over they have frozen, and we pick up once a week to then use for our own hot meal service. Places like Walmart and Kroger donate dry good items, frozen meat items, pastries. Starbucks, bagels, cake pops. I mean, it's a great thing.
But what's the best? What's the best kind of donations that you can give? If someone says, "Hey, I'd really like to donate, but what should I give them?" What are the most efficient types of donations, food donations that you could receive if just the general public's trying to help out?
Canned goods, boxed goods, dry goods, as they're called. Mm-hmm. It's hard to take meat items,
right.
That type thing. We really don't want to do that, even though we're getting them from say like Walmart and and Kroger and that type thing. But those things are they're dated. What you're getting when they're past the due date and that type thing. There are certain things that you have to do, obviously, from a standpoint of the best used by date. Milk, dairy products we don't get into because it's, we do through gleaners, but as far as donations and that type thing, we tend to shy away from.
Well, I just wanted to cover that because if people want to help us, sometimes, we want to direct them how they can help the most, and you don't want to be, picky about those kind of things. But it is important that, especially when we're talking about food items, I just love it important for public to understand, what that
bottled
is.
Water, Gatorade. It's about anything that anybody would be thinking would be helpful to someone who might be hungry other than a frozen food item.
Sure.
We're good.
Great. Anything else that you want to share?
Thank you for the opportunity for us to come here and, tell our story.
Well, you're a real trooper. I know it hasn't shown, but I know you're just a little bit under the weather today, so I do appreciate you coming and doing this. So I hope that after hearing about Circle U today, that our followers are encouraged to support them by donating, volunteering, or even both. And if you go to circleu.org, there is a link giving you several options to help, and that's circle the letter U. So circleu.org. Kyle, thank you for joining us on the Hub. And I really thank you for the work you're doing in our community and Circle U as a whole. So,
Mike, thank you, and don't forget you get me 3 shots aside starting in March.
Okay, we're talking about golf, no. So, hey, thanks to Manpower, our sponsor. We've been in the community since 1966, an invested community partner helping companies and employment seekers win. So, For more information on Manpower, you can go to mprichmond.com. That's mprichmond.com. Thank you.